The Choice by Matthew Tucker. Narrated by Sam Suaudom. It always comes down to a choice. My best friend, or the woman we both love. We had fought alongside each other on countless battlefields, covering each other against all manner of foe. Fought alongside each other in the trenches of Galliope 7 against the savage Orc horde. Survived when numerous of our brethren had perished. Through it all, we had each other's backs. Until this moment. There was doubt. There was enmity. There was jealousy. They had their disagreements in the past, but nothing like this. Nothing quite so toxic. I wish he would disappear. Now, I had the chance. How can I think these words? A fleeting choice that would mean one of two things. Murdering my best friend to gain the affection of one I crave. Or saving him, to live in resentment and misery at the decision, but with my honor intact. Both could mean my destruction given our mutual enemy, but either could mean the difference between happiness and regret. What choice do I have?
She didn't deserve him.
My inner voice was speaking to me, unbidden. It gnawed at me like a frayed piece of rope, plucking away at the strands of my self-control, reminding me of what I could lose and the source of my current and future sorrow. Sure, Ophelia was a native to this world called Ellipses, and forming relationships with the natives was frowned upon in our regiment, but my feelings are real, and he doesn't deserve her affection. Does that mean I could sacrifice our long-term friendship for her? Me and Davin had a history, spanning several years, all the way back to when we completed basic. Stuck by each other, requesting the same postings, rising through the ranks at roughly the same rate. I was squad leader, then platoon leader. He was my second in command throughout. A reliable soldier, a steadfast hand, and deadly with a long lass. We had each other's backs. Then we had that incident. I guess we were lucky the commissariat didn't execute us on the spot for that. Punches were exchanged, several locals injured in the scuffle, and charges brought forward. Our length of service, strong battle record, and the belief from the commander that we were decent men allowed us to be spared the firing squad. However, they had to punish us, and I guess this placement was it. For 2 guardsmen with sentinel pilot training, this Death World posting would be sufficient, given the life expectancy for such soldiers was less than 8 days. Expected to fight the enemy and die in honor. If we miraculously survived, this punishment would, the theory suggested, strengthen our bonds of brotherhood and focus our enmity on the enemy. There'll be plenty of foes for you both to fight there, soldier, my commanding officer said as he issued our transfer papers. A mutual punishment. Once we served our time, we would be welcome to return to the company. A moment to reflect on our transgressions. Without the company command breathing down our necks, placed in harm's way. Battle strengthening our resolve. I knew it was a fruitless endeavor. Nothing could solve my burning hatred for one I shared so many similarities with. Throne, we even looked like brothers. If it weren't that he had hair, I didn't. That he had an old scar running down his face, we could almost be twins. Almost. I guess all soldiers fight, but not always for the same woman. We were sent to support the 57th Acadian Recon Regiment on Diabolis Tertio. Far from Ophelia, far from my love. Absence makes the heart grow fonder, and made my hatred burrow deep into my veins like a hot needle through my soul. It was all his fault, or was it mine, for not confessing my feelings sooner, missing my chance?
You will have your chance. Take it when it comes.
I wanted to tell the little niggling id inside me, spreading seditious thoughts within my mind, to be silent, stifling the notion. I bit my inner mouth to stop lashing out at it. It had always been with me, guiding my thoughts, my actions, saving my life on more than one occasion. Yet it was incessant, stealing my thoughts as if screaming into my ears to act, to do something, to take what was mine. "Did you hear me, Gallus?" My vox pinged, disturbing my inner reverie. I clicked the receiver. The call was across a private line sheltered from prying ears within the unit. "Sorry, I was distracted." I said we will be all right. You and me. We will serve out our time here, but I have always got your back.
Have you really? Like a bayonet between the ribs?
Yes, of course, Davin. The guard comes first. Arcadia? He awaited my response.
He should have been posted there to die on that planet.
Arcadia. The link clicked off. I checked the aspect screen above the control yoke of the scout sentinel. Sweat beaded across my helm as the underbush crunched under the reinforced plating of the sentinel's feet. Previously, we had faced xenos abominations in the thicket, some form of thorny biped on what I could only describe as a great beast. The brief classed them as a dead-end evolutionary section of the race known as Kroot, called a Krootox. Whatever they were called, when massed together, they proved formidable and deadly. However, no contact or Auspex returns had been seen for 3 days. Plenty of time to think, and pine, and plan. The rest of the squad reported the same returns. Move to nav point Deltas. The 2 Sentinel squads declared affirmatives. I commanded Squad Hellas. Davin was in command of Peltat Squad, each containing 3 Sentinels. Each squad was outfitted identically. Both myself and Davin had a Sentinel chainsaw and heavy flamer, while the rest of our squads had manipulator arms and auto-cannon loadouts. Useful when traversing this hot, sweaty jungle planet. We moved swiftly in formation, killing smaller beasts underfoot, picking off local vermin and the occasional Kroot hound. The presence of the latter meant the enemy were close by. I grew impatient. Pushing ahead of my squad, thoughts rushed through my head.
What if you were caught? What if she discovered the truth? She would never know, would she?
Gallus, you reading this? Davin voxed through the squad band. I was brought to attention as I sawed through a fallen tree trunk the size of a volcano cannon barrel. The Auspex pinged a larger return, larger than what we had seen since our posting. It's massive! From the northwest, coming at speed! I readied my heavy flamer, depressing the fuel actuator and setting the ignition sequence. By the way, I'm going to ask Ophil to marry me when we get back. The sudden news took my attention, and I turned my yoke instinctively towards my counterpart in surprise. What? Ophil, I think she's the one. Now that we are okay, I wanted your blessing, and for you to be my best man. Jealousy flooded my emotions. I couldn't hate my best friend any more than this moment.
It wouldn't take a lot. Just pull the trigger. Let the flamer do the rest.
My inner monologue was almost committed to the act. I struggled against the impulse. There it is again. North this time. The Auspex pinged once more. A large return, easily bigger than the Krootox. What did this breed have that was bigger than one of them? We would soon find out. Squad Peltat, fan out. Flanking pattern Theta. Davin commanded his squad. The moment lost. I read the return. Solid copy. Your orders, sir. One of my squad requested. The autocannon-armed sentinel in my squad looked over at my sentinel. I was motionless, lost to thoughts of Davin and Ophil at the Imperial altar. Me, playing second string in their happiness. A wave of grief threatened to overtake me.
Idiot. Grow a backbone. Fight for them.
The words were almost like those of my long-dead abusive father, a hard man, quick of fist, and slow of wit. Shut up, shut up, shut up, I thought, berating the voice to silence. Catching myself and remembering the issue at hand, I gave my squad its orders. As the two other sentinels watched my unmoving sentinel, I wonder what they thought of me. These men, forced to work under my command.
The enemy will attack in this direction.
As if guiding my view.
When that attack comes, get ready to move.
Right, Squad Hellas, breach pattern armistice. The autocannon in my squad pulled back, ready to bracket whatever came through the undergrowth. Both me and the other flamer sentinel moved to the right, ready to douse the incoming threat with promethium. Still one return, coming in fast. The autocannon in Squad Peltot scanned ahead, his autoloader purring with rotating fury, ready to deliver swift imperial might. Be ready, men, I chirped in the vox. A wave of affirmatives greeted my resolve. Now I was focused. What could be bigger than a crew tox? I overheard one of my squad let slip while the vox link was open. It would seem we were all thinking the same thing. We were about to find out. A monstrous life form, dwarfing even those great beasts, smashed aside trees that had stood for thousands of years. Wood shattered, and entire sections of forest overgrowth plummeted from overhead. The initial blindness from the piercing sunlight temporarily blinded us to its rushing form. Fire! A wave of autocannon rounds peppered the greater beast, ripping chunks from its reinforced scales. Leather straps secured around metal muzzles controlled its head as its handler prodded the creature from its perch atop the creature's hugely muscular shoulders. It fired a hand-cranked weapon, looking like a primitive crossbow. It was anything but. A bolt punctured through the carapace of one of my squad, skewering the pilot, killing him instantly. Our autocannon sentinel stood in place, unmoving. We made it pay the price in flame. Promethium jetted over the lower sections of the beast, causing it to buck wildly as the fire did its job. Its green hide blackened and cracked as the superheated gel cooked the flesh of its legs. It roared its fury back, turning toward the other member of my squad. Die, xenos filth! I depressed my injector trigger again and charged forwards, revving the blade engines on the chainsaw. Support Squad Hellas! I overheard Davin ordering over the crackling vox.
Over there.
The voice guided my viewpoint, as if prescient to the danger lurking in the jungle. To your left! I shouted down the comms bead, just before a wave of trees fell. A second great beast and a host of smaller Kroot breeds scrambled around in its wake, their primitive weapons pinging off the legs of the sentinels. They would not make the same mistake twice. The last autocannon opened fire, aiming at the creature's head and the handler. Shots punctured deep into its carapace, ripping into flesh and bone. Blood spilled across the green undergrowth. The handler hid where he could, as his mount bucked furiously, trying to get whatever cover remained in the growing tumult. 3 Kroot were crushed under hoof. The rest of the Kroot carnivore squad fell back to allow the creature to move. Burn! I heard Davin yell as he doused the smaller foes at his feet. The oddly sweet smell of Kroot flesh cooking flared in my nostrils. My own prey was still a threat, though. I released my promethium activation trigger and gunned the chainsaw as I charged down the wounded Leviathan. The other flamer sentinel in my squad flanked around, aiming high to spread the flames to the handler. He fired another bolt, pinging off the metal tubular framework of my sentinel. Wordlessly, with a guttural growl buried in my throat, sore from shouting at the top of my voice, I pushed the chainsaw manipulator yoke forwards, hard. The spinning blades of the weapon bit deep into the monster, aimed towards where its heart traditionally should have been. It cut flesh with ease, but met resistance when hitting reinforced bone around what should have been its ribcage. The blade faltered, to which the creature turned its enormous maw and went to take a bite from my cockpit. I saw blood welled up from its throat, indicating a mortal wound had been gifted. Its teeth gripped my steel-reinforced frame, buckling the metal, creaks and cracks the opening notes to the symphony that marked my own demise. My thoughts reached out to my sweet love. Her golden blonde locks waving in the cold air of the hab we would have had together. The sweet taste of her lips on mine as she gave me the softest kiss. Or a lover welcoming home her beau. Only they weren't mine. They were his. Gallus was the recipient of the tender embrace. His greasy, black hair fell across his cheek, his acrid stench impregnating the aroma of the room. His laughter at a shared joke unbeknownst to me as he dropped his uniform jacket, adorned with badges of rank, honorifics, and medals of valor that should be mine.
Your fate should be his life should be yours. He stole away from you.
I watched as one of the metal rebars surrounding my seat cracked under the titanic pressure as two smaller appendages gripped the body of my sentinel for purchase. The smell of the foul breath made me gag. It broke my mental lethargy, spurring me to action. I pulled back and pushed forwards again on the chainsaw manipulator controls. The screeching power unit in the failing weapon activated with gusto, driving fully deep into the creature's torso. Something had given way inside the great beast because it pulled back from eating me, pulling its head up, as if calling up to its gods in help, only to realize they were not listening. It let go. The handler, falling several meters to the ground, followed by the dying remains of the beast. It hit the deck with a hard crump, crushing another 6 Kroot mercenaries. The loss of one great beast would mean the immediate retreat from battle for this race. The loss of 2 would be overwhelming. Once I'd cleaned the blood and viscera from my face and helmet, I watched as the remaining heavy flamer sentinel in my squad reinforced squad peltat. Cleansing flame reduced all it touched to liquid slag, cooked meat, and gelatinized bone. The rest of the Kroot mercenaries melted back into the undergrowth, regrouping for another push, next time in larger number, but minus these 2 giant monsters. Davin had apparently survived the battle unharmed. Damn him. Close shave, eh? He chuckled as I noticed my face had apparently been slashed by an errant tooth from the Nardlock as it tried valiantly to devour its next meal. I bled profusely from the gash. It would require stitches to heal, but would always leave a scar. Ophiel would not like the sight of me now. Not now. Not ever. Looking at my counterpart, the voice that had been with me my whole life quietly spoke with my voice.
That wound is on the same side as Davin's.
I barely contained a snarl at the grim hand fate had dealt me. Regroup and fall back. We need to bolster our lines and inform command. Beyond the clearing, the sound of graviton engines purred. Jet wash burned undergrowth, and energy weapons burning through the bush threatened to immolate us. The Auspex pinged with multiple returns. This time, the audible cues chimed with metal identifiers, indicating armored constructs in the distance closing in fast. I didn't need my prescience for danger to warn me that this latest threat was beyond what we had left to muster. Run! A plethora of heavy energy weapons fired skirted our heels as the first of several jet-propelled machines flew in from overhead. The beasts were merely a vanguard, aiming to soften up any forward defenses. We were still in the thicket and outside of the main base box range. To live beyond today, we had to fall back. Energy beams cored the last of my squad to the back, cooking off as flamer reserves, enveloping the walker in burning jets of liquid promethium. The only saving grace of the screams of the dying soldier was that his agony was short-lived, as another beam detonated its drive unit, causing the chassis to explode. The force dented what remained of the armor plating below the control section of my own mount, but I remained upright and functional. My chainsaw, having been ripped partially off its mountings by the fallen Narlock, hung limply by its connection points. My promethium tank had roughly a third of the tank capacity left, enough for a 3-second burst of fiery spray. A dark thought crossed my mind.
Perhaps.
Thoughts raced through my mind as the retreating autocannon sentinel walked backwards, covering our retreat. We were still several kilometers away from safety, but the enemy were hot on our tails. I saw what I could only describe as a floating tank with an oversized cannon aim at the autocannon sentinel and open fire. We were suddenly deep into the undergrowth, having moved in the direction counter to the tower's halt. It was just me and Davin left. The wound on my face had slowed its bleeding to a dirty crawl, mixing with soot and dirt, pasting to my lank hair that fell from under my helm. Pulling my helm away, probing the wound with my shaking fingers. As I thought, it was deep.
If it wasn't for Davin, you wouldn't be here. You would still be on ellipses. You wouldn't be away from your love.
Was the voice inside my head mine? If so, why did it speak in the third perspective? I searched my thoughts, but found an answer left wanting. Are you okay, Gallus? His sincerity made me want to vomit. At least he was no longer clean-shaven and well-kept. His arm was a scorched mess of rags. A slight burn on his exposed forearm showed as reddish pink, indicating second-degree burns. His face was black with soot and gore, but not his own. Likely the soot from the promethium detonation of his squad mate. There was nothing we could do for them. We were outnumbered and outgunned. We should have stayed and fought, I muttered, as I released my seat straps and kicked the access ladder down to the brush underneath me several feet below. I cautiously made my way down to the floor before dropping to my knees, to stare at my burnt glove, gingerly peeled them off, seeing my fingerprints were damaged beyond repair. A dark idea came to light. The voice inside me roared its appreciation. It bolstered my decision no matter how foul it was. Could I do it? Davin joined me on the hard deck, inspecting his sidearm and surveying the damages to his sentinel. Surprisingly, both the chainsaw and flamer were in working order, but some actuators in the legs were broken and sparking.
That would slow you down.
Are you able to walk? Pointing to my walker above me. He peered behind us, expecting the droning sound of enemy jetpacks to preview their arrival from above. Only the sound of the local fauna and flora embraced us. Meager light pierced the green plaque of growth dozens of meters above us.
No one would know a thing.
The voice continued to embolden my resolve, but a well of hatred threatened to burst deep down, drowning out the incessant pleas for, "Why did it have to be you?" I shouted, spittle foaming at the sides of my damaged face. What are you talking about? I thought we had settled this. You don't love her the way I love her. You stole my happiness. I took nothing from you. My wrath spilled over into physical action. I could not stop myself. No amount of self-control would negate my need for vengeance now. I launched from the hunched position to tackle my best friend to the ground. He struggled in return, fighting me off, but not retaliating. I swung my burning right hand at his face, missing by a mile. He ducked and parried my hooks, crosses, and grabbed me by the shoulders. Pulling me in close, he raged in my ear, feeling his hot breath against my neck. The words he spoke made no sense. I was too enamored in hate to understand them. His stench sickened me. I wriggled, trying to prise an arm free to reach for my sidearm that was broken in its holster, an effective club regardless. He refused to let go, gripping me in a bear hug as we fell to the ground, wrestling on the floor. We swapped holds until he was on my back, his bulky, burnt arm wrapped around my throat as his other arm pressed against the back of my head. We are more than friends. We are brothers in arms. Brothers do not kill each other. Don't do this. I'd love you. I tried to form words, but his biceps squeezed my larynx closed, forcing out a gurgle.
He's willing to kill you. Why are you so weak in return?
He slowly released the grip on my throat, talking slower but pained in the action. I'm going to let you go now. Don't fight. I nodded as the light behind my eyes began to dim. Suddenly, I was able to breathe. The sudden rush of oxygen in my lungs forced me to cough uncontrollably. Getting my breath back, I picked myself up, my chest on fire with exertion. Tears streamed down my face, leaving runnels of skin under the blackened tar of scabbed blood and cooked flesh ash. Davin was also willing up, but not in pain. Well, maybe not physical. You are like a brother to me. We have survived through thick and thin. You and I. He paused for effect, seeing my cold blue eyes weigh him up. Coldridge Basin, Calliope 8, Dead Hand Cove, Contash Hive Sprawl. We survived it all. When none of our kin fell, we had each other's back. Now, after wanting to share my life with you, beyond this, you try to hurt me. My hand wavered along the deck as I tried to push myself up from my haunches. Where is it? I thought. The voice in my mind screamed for more action. I told it internally to be quiet and let me do this. And for what? A woman? If she means so much to you, I will gladly step aside if it means I get to keep you in my life, my best friend. His proclamation caught me off guard.
Lies.
The voice cried out.
He is trying to make you doubt. It is a trick.
You would step aside? I repeated, as my hand gripped the floor undergrowth as I pushed to my feet painfully.
There. I see. Do it.
The voice roared approval. The fact that the voice no longer spoke in my inner tones did not concern me. It was deeper, venomous, not human. Always. You mean everything to me. You're my brother, my shadow, my North Star. I would follow you into the Eye of Terror, if need be. I would do anything for you. He walked over to me, placing a hand across my shoulders. I gripped his with my left hand, as my right, damaged in the fight, was held to my side. It shook with adrenaline. Let's get back. The commander will need to know about the attack that will fall upon the base. We've wasted enough time. Peace. He held out his right hand to shake mine. I holstered his working pistol in my holster that was hidden behind me. Grasping his right hand with mine, I shook hands, the hatred having simmered by his honesty. The voice defiantly roared, demanding the unspoken act of betrayal. Peace.
You are weak.
It was right. I am weak. We walked to each other's mounts, gunned the drives, and proceeded to the firebase to warn the commander there of the imminent attack. Davin led the journey, his working chainsaw clearing the path for our damaged walkers. Cutting down a collection of fallen tree stumps, the distinct thump-thump of anti-aircraft fire no more than a couple kilometers ahead could be heard, followed by the low drones of high-powered energy weapon fire. There! We need to press on. The attack is underway.
Pathetic. You had your chance, and you blew it. She deserves to be with him. He is the better man, it seems.
Hurry, Gallus. They will need our help. He let rip with his flamer to try and clear some of the undergrowth, to aid their traverse through the mire. His flamer emptied ahead, running out of fuel to power it. Regardless, it still had its chainsaw. Gallus? Failing to hear a response.
They will live happily ever after, and you will be left here, disfigured, unloved, unremembered.
Davin slowly turned around, his head following suit slowly as a grim realization reached his eyes. The spout of my flamer was alight and pointed directly at Gallus's cockpit. Finally, I had made the decision. It was always going to be me.
No.
I finally gave in to the voice. It demanded this act of betrayal. I wanted it. It wanted the betrayal. I would feed it. I pulled the trigger, submerging Davin's mount with Promethean fury. Davin would have screamed, but not a word was spoken. I emptied the contents of my flamers into his sentinel until the metal warped and collapsed. The tank empty but pressurized, exploded, destroying what was left of the sentinel. I let go of the trigger, watching scant seconds of the carnage at my feet. A grim smile reached my tattered face. They always said we looked alike. Now I guess they will never know the difference. The voice, deep in my subconscious, finally cried out in affirmation.
All this time was not in vain. I always knew you had potential.
It finally gave up the pretense. All this time, it was not me. The grim reality that I was used hit me like a thunder hammer. I understood perfectly that it used me for its own devices. Then, it left me, as if it had its fill of this final act of betrayal. All I remember as I watched my former best friend, now a charred husk of a corpse, burn and collapse under the weight of the sentinel was the sound of the dead and dying at the Imperial outposts, as it was also destroyed by the xenos foe, and the weird crying laughter of my own vocal cords as I fell to my knees, unsure as to what to do next. For Ophelia, I thought, as the Crutox that had stalked us at last pounced through the jungle behind me and began to rip my body apart.